Hello, everybody. How is it going? It is Coach Malcolm here with another YouTube video lesson. Unfortunately, my camera is not functioning right now, but I'm getting that problem fixed, and I can almost say, with complete certainty that for my next video, I will have my camera on. So if that's sort of a feature that makes these lessons easier, makes them feel more real time, I apologize. This is only a 2 video occurrence that this is going to be happening, but let's get on to our lesson, and that is the 2 bishop endgame checkmate. It is not a super tricky checkmate. I'd say it is more difficult than a king and queen or a king and rook checkmate, or like a king and 2 rooks, king and queen and rook checkmate. Those combos, because 2 bishops, aren't as powerful as a rook or a queen. I mean, it depends on the position, of course, but just a 2 bishop endgame we can consider maybe a little harder and definitely more uncommon than those other endgames. So I thought, hey, why don't we make a video on this? Maybe people have fallen into these endgames, had a little trouble not having drawn positions, maybe running into some issues with the 50 move rule, where they play 50 moves without a check, without a capture or a pawn move, and then it unfortunately ends up being a draw. Checks do not cancel out the 50 move rule. So what is going to be our strategy for this game? Well, basically, what's going to happen is I'm going to play it out against the computer. We're going to put it on the highest level possible. We're going to get a game, and I'm going to explain as we go along. But just to start off, let me explain our plan. These corner squares of the board are incredibly key to our game, and incredibly key to our checkmate. So we want to force the king into one of these corners. Some checkmating endgame sort of mating patterns, like a bishop and a knight, which I'm going to do another video on soon. You only have 2 of these options. If you have a light squared bishop, you can only checkmate in these 2 corners. If you have a dark squared bishop, you can only checkmate in the dark squared corners, but we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. So like I was saying, the 2 bishop checkmate, you need to checkmate in one of these corners. So how are we going to do that? We want to first get the king, push him back, and this is all about taking squares. The same way when you were playing a king and queen checkmate, you are taking squares away from the king, making the box that he has smaller. We don't have a box right now. The same way with a king and rook checkmate, it is all about taking squares away from the king. Once we get the king on to one of these, ending ranks or files, then we are going to choose a corner and slowly push him into that corner. But let me stop explaining and let us do some actual play. All right, so we're going to play with the computer. Let's see. Let's make the level 8, which is the highest level. We don't need a time control. And then let's play white, of course, because we want to, be playing white. So I'm just going to start off, bring my king into the position. And remember, we're trying to push the king on to one of these back ranks or, side ranks of the board, whatever, side files, one of the either the H file or the A file. All right, so I'm going to give this king check. It's a little harder to see the box per se that this king has, and sometimes it's not even a box. It'll be more like a weird triangle, and I'll show you guys what I mean by that. So when you have a rook, let's say your rook is on c4, this is the box that the king can be contained within. When you have bishops, it's a bit of a different story. What we have here is almost just like a triangle, right? And the king's triangle is sort of relegated to this area. Of course, he can come up, but if he comes up, once we've guarded these 2 bishops, this king can never pass this sort of barricade. We can call it a barricade. The king is not able to get past this barricade, and we're going to make this barricade smaller with moves like bishop c4, right? We can see we're pushing this king just a little bit farther to the back rank, it looks like, or maybe we'll push him to the A file. We're going to advance our king. King activity is always, like you guys know, in king and rook, king and queen endgames, always super duper important. You need to have your king helping your pieces, otherwise you won't checkmate. As you can see, we are just continuing to take more and more squares away from this king. The king doesn't even have a lot of squares at this point. It looks like, they've got a couple, but they don't have a whole lot. So these, obviously not a box. I was mistaken when I said that earlier. Whatever kind of, maybe we call it a triangle, a barricade, I think I said earlier. But now let's bring our king in some more. Keep in mind, the king cannot pass this area, so we are just in very good shape here. Bishop e6, just taking more and more squares from this king. It's almost just a pattern that you follow, kind of exactly the same as the king and rook or king and queen checkmate, guys. I feel like we're noticing a pattern of patterns, if you follow me. All right, now as you can see, we have pushed this king all the way onto the 8th rank, and we need to decide on a corner to push this king into. First of all, the first thing that is important to do is we're going to need to bring our king up, so I'm going to do that first, and we need to make sure we don't stalemate. So after king e8, which is their only move, something like bishop e7 would be a stalemate. So what is our strategy in this position? We're going to push this king to h8. So what we need to do, the first square, this king is going to try and go to a8, but we want to push him over to h8. So how do we stop him from going to a8? We take away the one square that allows him to go there. So bishop c7, perfect. Now this king cannot move over to a8. He's going to have to go closer and closer to the h8 corner. Now, how are we going to take the next square? This square on e8, we're just simply going to play bishop to d7. Now we have taken this e8 square. The king is going to move over yet again. Here, I'm going to move my king over because I really do want to keep this king contained. You don't want to let that king really come off the back rank. The king is going to move over to f8, and we will get a check. The king cannot come to e8, and now we have taken this f8 square, and this will actually be a super easy checkmate. See if you can find our checkmate in 2 here. It is lined up quite nicely. Take a second or two, pause your videos. Checkmate in 2, we have done it. Beaten a 2600 level stockfish. Okay, maybe we had 2 bishops to start off with. Not really fair to the stockfish. I don't really think I can say I beat a 2600, but we can maybe just, we can maybe twist the truth a little bit with this one. All right, hopefully you found your mate in 2. Bishop e6 is correct. We have taken so many squares from this black king, unfortunately for him. And now bishop e5 is going to be checkmate. White is victorious. We have taken down the notorious stockfish level 8, 2600 rated. So we have beaten a grandmaster with our 2 bishops. So just to review what happened, all right? You have to, form your sort of barricade that you emerge. You always need to have king involvement. Your king should be guarding your bishops. And you need to form this barricade, which is basically just, the bishops controlling squares and keeping this king out. So when I say barricade, I mean there's no way, okay, we can't move for black. There's no way, we can do the analysis board. There's no way for this black king to come out. If they go to e6, all these squares are going to be covered. There's just no way to come out of this sort of triangle that we've created. The king can never emerge outside of these arrows that we have here. So what did we do? We pushed this black king more and more, took away more and more squares as we went along, always bringing our king in slowly, and then we would take more squares, right? So here, we are this is the area that we're cutting off, and now we are going to move in, and now we are cutting off this area. So just less and less squares every single time for this black king, until finally we got that black king on the 8th rank. This still works on the A file, on the H file, on the 1st rank. This black king just happened to move to the 8th rank. And then what did we do? Of course, we brought our king in yet again, and we took squares, all right? So we took squares away from this king. We took d8 away. We took e8 away. We kept the king back, maintained a little bit of opposition, made sure he couldn't move forward, and then continued to take the squares, forcing that king to h8. You may run into a position sometimes where, all right, so the video cut for a second, but my point was I'm not going to try and explain a position when it's not on the board. So I reset the position, made it just a little different, and we're going to play the computer out for here. So what I was saying was sometimes you run into a position where you need something called a waiting move, so you don't, sort of lose your momentum and let the king escape, and you don't get a stalemate. So here, we're still trying to force this king to h8. I've just changed up sort of not the move order just a little bit, but the position has shifted a little bit. So we would still play something like bishop d6 to take control of f6, but now you'll notice king h8, bishop e5 is not checkmate anymore. It's not as clean of a checkmate. It's not as easy, because after bishop e5, this king is going to go back to g8. And we can't play a move like bishop e6 because that is a stalemate position. So what do we have to do in a position like this? We just need to wait. We just need to relax a little bit. Maybe drink a little water, but in all reality, we just need to do a waiting move with this bishop. Any of these squares would be fine, even this bishop as well, either bishop. So let's say we move something like bishop a3. We went all the way back. We are just giving this king time to get back to g6. He doesn't have a lot of squares. Obviously, g6 is the only move. And now we have our super simple checkmate in 2. Bishop check, and bishop b2 is going to be checkmate. So that is what I was talking about. Sometimes you may need a bit of a waiting move. But I hope you guys have, mastered, or just have, at the very least, a better understanding of the 2-bishop checkmate. I recommend you test this out on your own because, you know, it may seem kind of simple after watching this video, but there are some times where it can be tricky on the board. You can forget certain ideas. And of course, the best way to master this checkmate is by practicing it. So I recommend you try and do that. But that is all for this video. I'm going to be posting a bishop and knight and, you know, king versus one king checkmate. That is, I would say, substantially harder, probably the hardest checkmate, endgame checkmate in chess. In my opinion, it is very difficult. I'll be posting a video on that, I believe, tomorrow. So check that out if you are interested, and I will see you guys then. Thank you, everybody.